You just took the words straight out of my mouth. It is lowering the barriers of entry. I'll give you an example. Actually, it was just 2 weeks ago that we signed one of our newest customers. That a year back they were looking around on the market, and they found out ultimately that we're not going to be able to afford a designated core for financial services part for the next 1 or 2 years. And then we came along and we showed them that there is another way. So now what we're doing for them is implementing the full core for them to be starting out on significantly lower cost that you would have with any of the legacy providers. Yeah. Because how we do it is actually quite simple. So the one thing being that we do implementations according to the customer's needs. And the second thing is the software as a service, let's say, pay as you grow modeling, by which we are determining the costs on the basis of what they are using and the actual volumes that they're running on the platform. So it's not about the number of applications or anything like that, because we know that this doesn't really correlate with the business itself, not too much. But we are pricing it exactly on the basis of how many active contracts do you have as of today. So if they are growing, we are growing as well.
Ian, great to meet you. Thank you so much for coming and spending time with us.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Okay, let's just get started. Tell us a little bit about you. Tell us who you are and what you do.
So my background is in the financial services, and about 3 years ago I joined Bankish full-time as the customer experience officer, or a CXO as we call myself today. What I particularly deal with is the customers and the partners, which are very interlinked in our area of business, where we supply a core part of their technology infrastructure, and alongside that our partners are supplying all of the bells and whistles, some of the additional services that we are not core, let's say, partners for, or core don't have the core knowledge for. So we are utilizing the full extent of let's say Fintech expertise for all of our customers to be building out solutions relevant to them.
Right. Okay. So let's take it from the start. Tell us, what is Bankish core value proposition, and I'd like to know specifically what problem is it solving in the market.
So Bankish, actually, I'll give you a bit of a founding story on that. Even though I wasn't one of the founders of Bankish, I was right next to it when it was born. So it all started from a financial institution needing a new core infrastructure for their own use. And looking at the market back then, it was either one of the two extremes. So either you have very bulky, very expensive core banking suppliers, legacy technologies, or you would have very limited but cheap solutions that are not interconnecting to all of the other ones over there. So you would have something for your mortgages, something for your leasing, etc., and all of the different parts of the credit process, for example. So origination, loan management, debts management, everything very separated, but all of those individual pieces super cheap to be handling, right? So back then we were using already a software as a service proposition. We weren't the ones to be building out first our own or doing something on top of their knee, putting a lot of money into it. No, that wasn't us. So we were already using like an external solution provider. But at one point we realized that, okay, if roughly 90% of our business is out of the scope of the system that we're currently using, then it makes sense to seek for something else.
Yeah.
So ultimately, we came back with the market response and saw that there is a gap in the market for players such as ourselves. And we quite quickly saw that we have also the capability of running it through ourselves, to be building it up. Some sort of a new value proposition towards the financial institutions, the creditors and smaller banks of the future, right? So hence why we put together, and this is where the team's competence really comes in, because it's 30 years of financial services experience across multiple channels on the IMFs and the NASDAQs and everything on that side. Wrapping that up together with the core banking IT knowledge, with our CTO having like 4 or 5 core banking solutions in his background.
Right.
Being able to build out a solution that is a fit for the financial institutions that would be using them, because it's built by professionals, and then at the same time built reasonably as a core banking platform. So that there's the mix of the two expertise parts are really bringing this all together. So what we serve today is ultimately a credit and deposits management solution, which covers end-to-end processes for our customers and across the entirety of the product spectrum. So if you're thinking about credit products, you can all define them in Bankish in virtually drop-down menus. So we built just a product suite in which our customers can build up their own value proposition, their own financial products for the markets, without contacting the IT saying, "Hey, could you develop this product for me?"
And presumably wait 18 months before it's ready, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so I think if we look at the market 5 years in the past, even cloud storage was like no, we should not go there, right? I think things have changed very quickly to the point that now we have core banking offerings based on cloud services. So the question I have for you is, we're seeing now a number of core banking solutions coming in various parts of the market. What would you say is the key differentiator that Bankish has?
I think what makes the most sense for our customers is the fact that they are able to come and launch very quickly and very cost efficiently, or not resource heavy. I'm glad that you mentioned how the markets have changed over the past 5 years. I'll one up you on that. Because 5 years ago, most of the credit institutions, banks still do, but most of the credit institutions, they all were 10 nails keeping to their own technical infrastructures. What we are building it ourselves. We are doing it ourselves because it's very integral to our business. But in reality, I would argue that the credit processes have been roughly the same for the past 5,000 years. So you have to make a decision somehow, you have to monitor it, and you have to collect it. So ultimately speaking, the processes are the same. Some of the bits and pieces might be moving around a bit, but ultimately it's the same. Now, this has shifted like 3 years back, or perhaps just before the big C. We saw a shift in the mindset of credit institutions, that they at once finally realized that the paradigm has shifted quite a bit. So now if you're thinking of the value of your credit company, if you were to sell it, the value is determined by the quality of the portfolio that you have, not the IT system that it's running on. Hence, why does it make sense for every financial institution to be a part-time, information technology company? It really doesn't. And what we are bringing to the market as a value proposition, if you want to put it this way, is we're giving them the opportunity to focus on the business whilst we take care of the IT.
Right. Well, okay, that's really interesting then. So what you're saying is that at least part of the market has really warmed up to the idea that they don't need to run their own infrastructure, that they can focus on just the credit assessment, the risk management, the collection, and the core processes, and have someone else deal with the technical part. Now, I guess perhaps this is now, and maybe still not fully adopted by the entire market. As you say, some banks still are very, very cagey about their infrastructure. What are the main challenges that you find in still bringing a product to market that perhaps a significant part of the industry says like, no, we keep this in-house?
Before I answer that, a lot of the, let's say, whys of why some of those players in the market are still keeping to their own technical infrastructures and maintaining the fact that they have to develop everything themselves is mostly because they have built up solutions over the course of tens of years. So now they're layering, and at one point it becomes such a monolith that you'd rather not touch it before it breaks. So as of today, I would argue that the main challenge that we are facing, and ultimately speaking, it's our customers facing that challenge. Okay, it's a difficult sale for us, sure, but the customers are the real ones who have the problem, right? So they are today struggling the most with the fear of change, because what they've been seeing around for the legacy core banking solutions and stuff like that, you're seeing the Barclays, you're seeing the HSBCs do huge digital transformation projects. We're talking years, we're talking tens of millions if we're going to HSBCs, and Barclays billions, right? Being invested into the digital infrastructure, and that is the fear of many of the smaller players on the market as well. It's like, we cannot reasonably afford anything to that extent. So it's a really difficult point at which for them to be, even be openly looking at the market.
Right. A bit earlier you mentioned you made a distinction between customers and partners. So I'm interested to know, who are your typical customers and who are your typical partners?
Well, very good, yeah. When it comes to our typical customers, it's, as of today, quite a young company still, Bankish is. We have been solving the digital problems for mainly small to mid-sized financial institutions. And these can range from wall to wall in terms of their size and the function that they're carrying out. So some of them are just business lenders. Some of them are just consumer credit providers. Some of them are a mix of the two, banks, credit unions, you name it. So as I said before, we cover the full spectrum of credit and the full product spectrum for that matter, so that they have the opportunity of, first of all, coming on board with, for example, some of our customers coming on board with just business lending. It's a significantly lower barrier to entry on the, let's say, the regulatory level as well.
Yeah.
And then growing together with Bankish into other products, and which they are just simply able to switch on.
Yeah.
I think that's absolutely brilliant for their perspective, to be able to grow and have the availability of all those different verticals in front of you. To be able to just, at one point, when I decide that I'm going to that market, I'm going to provide them this product and this way, it's literally minutes of setting it up and drop down menus.
Right.
So those are the customer spectrum is really wide. And when it comes to our partners, then we like to partner up particularly with other solution providers that we see that we're complementing each other with.
Right.
Like, for example, the likes of ID verification services. By no means are we trust services professionals. So hence, while we're going for the likes of, and name dropping some of my great partners over here, like Ondato from Lithuania, like Onfido, Jumio, some of the global players, Verif from Estonia, ID Now from Germany, all of these great players. They are the ones who are providing the solutions for our customers. So ultimately, I'm not going to make a decision on behalf of them, saying that you have to take that or you have to take those. They are the ones who decided, so we just connect and make the infrastructure work for them, whatever they tell us to.
So essentially, Bankish acts almost like a modular platform where you can just plug in services from other partners and then offer them in a very simple.
Exactly, and I would even go as far as to say that we're kind of like an integration layer, but on steroids, because we have the core ledger inside. They handle all of their business in one seamless environment, but connecting with all of the different parties which are necessary. And for that matter, there have also been customers who are actually using a different core banking platform, one of the, you would call them a legacy one, or one of the, let's say, the bulkier ones, which are meant for core banking activities, whilst we are more focused on the credit and deposits. Then for that particular customer case, we are proposing Bankish as a sort of like a middleware layer, where we're filling the gaps of everything else what is missing. Be it the front-facing interfaces, that's a small topic, but everything else on the gaps of some of the products, like bringing in card infrastructure providers, ID verifications, as I mentioned before, the full ordeal.
Right. Okay. And now, if we look at how the industry is changing and how the let's say the appetite for these type of solutions keeps growing, what role do you think companies like Bankish play in overall lowering the barriers for entry for new competitors to show up.
Exactly. You just took the words straight out of my mouth. It is lowering the barriers of entry. I'll give you an example. Actually, it was just 2 weeks ago that we signed one of our newest customers. That a year back they were looking around on the market, and they found out ultimately that we're not going to be able to afford a designated core for financial services part for the next 1 or 2 years. And then we came along and we showed them that there is another way. So now what we're doing for them is implementing the full core for them to be starting out on significantly lower cost that you would have with any of the legacy providers. Yeah. Because how we do it is actually quite simple. So the one thing being that we do implementations according to the customer's needs, not according to what we think the customers need. So you get it. We're not doing integrations or developments if we don't see a significant amount from the market or a customer specifically telling us.
Yeah. Yeah.
So hence we don't have such a high overhead that we would have to charge every customer more because of that, regardless of whether or not they're using this particular integration or functionality, right?
Right.
And the second thing is the software as a service, let's say, pay as you grow modeling, by which we are determining the costs on the basis of what they are using. And the actual volumes that they're running on the platform. So it's not about the number of applications or anything like that, because we know that this doesn't really correlate with the business itself, not too much. But we are pricing it exactly on the basis of how many active contracts do you have as of today. So if they are growing, we are growing as well. Yeah. And that's the sort of synergy that we're trying to create over here, and have sort of like created even an ecosystem of financial institutions now. Yeah. Because if somebody needs some particular enhancement to operational efficiency or some sort of a functionality to be brought up, then the community benefits from it.
When I hear stories like this, it sounds exciting, but I can't help but think just how profound the transformation is, because you're describing a complete different approach to banking, right? You're saying we're pricing on results, we're not pricing on capacity. And that it sounds so obvious when you hear about it, but that's not how the industry has traditionally run. And so I get really excited because this is a paradigm shift. And as you reduce the barrier for entries, at the end of the day, the people who benefit the most is people like myself, people like customers who have access to more competitive rates, better quality of service, and finally like a real competitive arena within the financial services sector, which is it's exciting, I think.
I completely agree. I couldn't agree more, because I'm super excited to be in this scene and to be doing what I do, particularly because we can see that we can really meaningfully make a difference. And I think that it's very interesting that you brought out how the paradigm has already shifted, but I think it's going to be going even further, and how it's going to be changing in we've come a long way 5 years, but within the next 5 years, a lot more is going to change, I think. And if you were to ask me personally whether I think it's going, I think it's going to get a lot more competitive in the financial services industry. Yeah. So at this point, we're going to have to start to think about whether it's the customer who's paying for that, or it's the financial institution, let's say, working on their margins, working on their cost base, not to be completely pricing everything straight to the customer back, because at one point they're not going to be competitive anymore. Yeah. And this is where you see all of these, let's say, novel business, let's say, ideas coming in as well in the financial services. Your buy now, pay laters, your embedded finance, which I'm a firm believer in. It's going to be a thing of the future anyways, if it isn't already today. Yeah. We're going to see a lot of new providers come in, like specialized financial institutions, but we're also going to see a lot of non-financial institutions step into the financial services market, embedding FS closer to their own product offering. And why not? Banks can do the same, vice versa, but
They should. That's
we'll see about that, how exactly that goes, because the banks, as we've seen over the past 5, maybe even to 10 years on this topic, is that the banks aren't really able to move as fast as some of the corporations that are trying to do novel things. Banks are trying to replicate what it's novel to have a non-financial institution suddenly step up and be a competitor to a bank.
Yeah.
But it's really tough to imagine something happening vice versa, so a bank becoming a direct competitor to a real estate company or whatever it might be. Yeah. I'm sure there are cases in which it already applies, but I would argue that the majority of the growth in the future is coming from over there.
Yeah, I agree, and in fact, the tagline that we take is that in a few years, every company will be a fintech. If you want to remain relevant in the market, you can no longer have the luxury to say, oh, no, we're in real estate, or no, we're manufacturing. You will have to have a fintech component within.
I agree, and I think that, even though I'm kind of conflicted internally about the word fintech, because I very much believe that there is a vast difference between fintech and fintech.
Right. Yeah.
So there are, and I would argue maybe there's even a third category of fintech. So let me just quickly explain. So, what I consider really deep down fintech with capital F and capital T are the financial technology companies, the technology enablers, you would call them. Particularly. Then the second category of fintechs are those, what I'm seeing a lot on the market, various new greenfield financial institutions branding themselves as fintechs, which I reckon is fine as well. But ultimately, what you were just saying, I think there is a third category of fintechs coming up, is every company in the future being a fintech. It's not about creating fintech solutions, it's about utilizing it for the value proposition towards the customer.
Exactly.
So ultimately, I think that everyone should become a fintech.
No, this is really interesting. Okay, I want to pick up on something you just said a minute ago, which is I'm rephrasing what you said, but and correct me if I got it wrong, but you're saying that we're only just starting to see the transformation and that shift in the market, right? So with that in mind, core banking, some AML, perhaps verification services, and some of the capabilities that your partners provide, what do you think financial institutions will have to retain internally going forward as more and more of the value chain is disintermediated? I
think it's two main things from my perspective. One being the general understanding of the tech side itself. You can have an external supplier, but you need to have an understanding and trust to it anyways. And the second part, definitely the operations. Whereas we're seeing a lot of, banking as a service propositions out there as well. I think that we're kind of touching on the lines of going perhaps too far on the operational, let's say, standardization, or let's say, taking it away from the tables of the financial institutions. I think this is what really, with providing services to your financial services customers, I think what you definitely have to retain is full control of your own business side, of operational things, of your own products, how you're doing that. Right. And you would treat, let's say, technology more like an enabler, not a regular part in your life. Right. Yeah, so hearing what you're saying, it reminds me of the typical case of BMW or Nike, right? That they're not really manufacturers of anything. They're basically just marketing companies, and they aggregate services that are provided entirely by third parties, put them together, and they bring them to market with some nice visuals and branding and that sort of thing. Yeah, because now, without going too deep into speculating whether or not they should be keeping some technical parts to themselves as well. I think it's fairly good to today, at least assume on a general level, that the financial institutions shouldn't be dealing with the tech, shouldn't be dealing with the IT to be developing out solutions. Right. This is where you have solution providers for. And I mean, as of today already, you have the capabilities of just hiring someone to do a website for you, building out some sort of a portal for your customers to meaningfully engage in. And by the way, we have a portal as well that our greenfield customers can instantly implement and as a white label basis. But that being said, at one point it becomes necessary to have more of like personal touch to it, and perhaps you want your customers to be able to do more on the self-service portal. And at this point, it's like you don't have to use ours anymore. You just plug in your own. Right. And those are the sort of components that they would have to orchestrate. And I'm more than happy, Bankish is more than happy to be helping them orchestrate the full ordeal. Right. But they shouldn't necessarily have to be building it,
Okay.
And that's what I feel.
Gotcha. All right. Just tell me if I was one of your customers and someone came and asked me, hey, what do you think about Bankish services? What do you think your customers say about Bankish?
One of the last things, and I have regular chat ups with the customers. I give them a call every now and then. How are you doing, right? Because I don't typically engage with them on a daily basis, and I don't know if they have some sort of a bug or some sort of a mistake has happened somewhere, and they are doing with the DevOps people. They are handling on the development side, right? But I give them a call every now and then, and it's always it's good. We're growing. We're really happy about this and that, and if they have some sort of concerns, that they know that they can come to me, and this is what where I'm getting to is one a very pleasant case of customer feedback before they were our customer, by the way, was last year in Money 2020 in Amsterdam in September over there. And then we had a lead whom we've been in talks for a good couple of years. They were taking it slow, preparing for full launch, starting out a greenfield financial institution, right? And they dropped by our booth with quite an esteemed professional from the financial services industry, and came to us and came to our booth over there at the Estonian joint stand, and said that, hey, meet Ian. These are Bankish. These are the guys who, over the course of past 2 years, had delivered on everything that they have said. And at that point, I was like, so why won't you sign? and ultimately, in the end of December, we did sign, and now they're a live customer after just a very quick, a 2-3 week implementation period. We completely rolled them out as is on a very greenfield basis, just kickstarting their business in a couple of weeks, and now they're operating with us. The last time I was in Sweden, I got a chance to meet up with them as well, and they were all smiles.
Yes. All right, just to close, tell us what's Bankish vision for the next 5 years, and what role do you expect to play in the broader financial services ecosystem?
I think it's from two perspectives, actually. One being where Bankish would be, and the other being where the financial services will be. Most definitely affecting each other. At least the financial services affecting Bankish, but we'll see how much we can do for the financial services in just 5 years as well. But I think that what we are doing is we're definitely we're growing, we're evolving. I mean, we just kickstarted in 2019 with a credit management solution, virtually an LMS to be handling the full credit life cycle, and have been developing ever since, introducing new modules, bringing on deposits, making it really a core banking solution. So I think what will be coming in the future is that we will see our customers grow to be banks. One of the first ones, actually, I just wanted to give out a huge congratulations to Finora Capital, who over the course of last years, when they've been working with us, have now obtained the banking license and are running their bank fully on Bankish, which is brilliant. Our first bank customer. But yeah, we're going to see a lot more of that. We can see our customers growing, us ourselves addressing new customers, bigger ones perhaps, and what I think that will be more to the lines of what I was saying before, more to the lines of like general, where will financial services be, are the likes of non-financial institutions stepping into the financial services markets, and this is where we can definitely make a huge difference, supplying our solutions to them, helping them kickstart and helping them validate their ideas, validate their opportunities over there, and see. I mean, ultimately, if they deem that it's not relevant for us, we gave it a good shot, it's not working out, then compared to many of the legacy providers, their overheads significantly lower.
Yeah.
So they will walk away with their heads high from this, if that should happen. But we haven't seen any customer fail with us yet, so we're hoping to continue on that note.
Well, Ian, you got us all fired up about the future. So thank you so much for coming and sharing your insights with us.
Thank you for having me. It has been really interesting.